Hello and welcome to assignment number 3, Photoshop Skill Assessment. We're going to tackle the section first. First thing you want to do is click on the Plan Diagram section, DWG. And let's open that up. And while that's loading, let me click back here. As a good frame of reference just for projects in general, I highly recommend, let this thing open up. Let's jump back. I highly recommend going to the asla.org. Let's go home. There we go. You want to go to, you can just do a search really in award winners. And you don't have the professional, and let's go here. Let's go. Promise you it's here somewhere. There we go. Okay. You just want to go to the awards, and once you find it, and then this is the 2016, so it's kind of a good overview of people and students and what ASLA considers to be good work. So we can click on 2016. Not only will this give you good descriptions of projects, or a good kind of an idea of what projects are winning and the depth of thought that goes into projects, but also the aesthetic. So for this class specifically, looking at the aesthetic, what I wanted to point out is really the diversity of rendering styles that exist still within landscape architecture. This is a student award winner, and this style obviously is hand rendered. It's hand in Photoshop. It's a blend, but they're using watercolor. It looks like really beautiful renderings. They're still doing they're still doing 3D perspective views, but they're still using hand rendering techniques, using some digital stuff too, obviously, to create these diagrams. This is a combination of Photoshop or Illustrator. With these board layouts, maybe InDesign. Just taking a picture of something can be very helpful. The idea behind anything that we're doing, which you ought to keep in mind, is that we're trying to tell a story. So as long as you're able to convey your design intent, that's what you're trying to do, and ultimately get something built. So even this is a super powerful before, after, and that's hand rendering, probably put together in Photoshop. Didn't take tons of time to do. Again, you're trying to tell a story. More sophisticated graphics with the Illustrator, diagramming. You see a lot of diagramming, again, a pretty basic graphic hand rendering and just overlaid in Photoshop. You see how the style of rendering for the elevations, just very kind of just hand rendered. Diagramming. So kind of that sense. And then you have something like this, and I wanted to show this. This is a smaller project. This is residential, a much smaller scale project, where this person 3D modeled everything from existing conditions all the way through. So as I go through this project, you see more of a newer style, I would say, of rendering, of storytelling, that I think is going to become more dominant within the field. Not to say that there's not a place for hand rendering, but I think that this, because of the nature of it being 3D, you'll see more and more of things like this, where each of these plants were placed specifically in his design, and they rendered them to be exactly the plant and to replicate the look of the plant. All right, and this is a very small project. Again, it's really good to read through these projects too. This is a very small backyard, but a lot of thought went into the plant selection, location, material selection. Nothing was arbitrary, so a lot, even though something very small like that, like a very small backyard, a lot of thought can be put into it. So there's that. Another style, you see this kind of desaturated style is more prevalent within the field right now. People using still traditional cut models and just taking pictures. Specifically, the renderings though have a very kind of desaturated look to them, very not very colorful, kind of almost monochromatic. You see a lot of things like this still piecemeal together. Again, this is kind of not as old as the traditional hand rendering. This is kind of midway, I think. This is kind of transition period between the more digital rendering that you saw, here, where you're doing things in Photoshop. You're kind of stitching together scenes and putting things in just again to tell a story. Not as accurate as the more contemporary 3D modeling, but again, it's successful because it's telling a story. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of show you the range, and then also the final thing I wanted to talk about, and you'll see within this series, is board creation. Board creation is a skill within itself. Design doesn't stop with your design. Design extends ultimately to the board. Now, doing a construction document like this is one thing. This is very generic and can be copied and just very kind of cookie cutter. When you get into actual creation of board layouts for deliverables, for like diagrams for showing clients or to try to win client buy-in, you want these things to be very attractive and well thought out. So your fonts change, there's a color scheme to all these things, and you'll see that this follows through this person's entire project. So just very good board layout, not just the idea behind what they're doing in their design, but just the graphic design behind it as well, the color selection, how they're illustrating some of these points. I'm not really sure what they're illustrating. Density of poor households, and there you go. All these things. And this way they're also creating infographics. So putting these boards together or trying to highlight health issues, major diseases. So, and how do you convey complex information to people in a very quick and easy to understand way? And a lot of that's going to be pictorial, right? So you take all this complex information and you condense it into these simple images that will hopefully illustrate the point that you're trying to make. So again, takes a lot of thought, and the board is still attractive to look at, in addition to being able to convey a lot of information. Beautiful board, right? So these things take time. So I tell my students all the time, when you're giving yourself time to create really nice-looking boards and aren't just really generic, quarter of the time at least it took you to complete the entire project. I know that might seem like a lot, but this stuff takes time to put together, especially when you're first learning. Okay, so again, I would check out these student awards. They have student awards and also professional awards. You can click on either and kind of go through and see who's won. And maybe one day you'll see a picture up here. I would encourage you all to submit your projects. So that being said, download the file. Let's jump right in. Let's get there. So I have in front of me, I have the preliminary plan. We'll do that second. I'm gonna go to the section, and I've already created the section in model space. I just rotated it. Let me turn off my line weights and just rotated it to be able to kick that out. Oh, residual. Okay. So I'm gonna go back here to my section, and it's all prepped for me. So what I want to do is I want to print this thing out, and the name of the game of this is already effectively done in AutoCAD. So if we're doing just construction documents, this would be fine. We're going to try to render this thing and make it look more attractive and more like some of the section elevations we saw and the demonstration pieces from the student award winners. So what I want to do is isolate some things first of all. So my dimensions are on. Let me go ahead and just lay ISO and isolate that. And let me just kick that out, DWG to PDF. All black. If you don't have it, make sure everything's printing black. I'm going to kick this out. I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to go to my SSA folder. And let me create a folder. And let me call this one just the dimensions. Okay. Take that out and Control Z to go back. And let me double click here and I'm gonna do a lay ISO. Hopefully just on the plant material. Okay. Paper space, and let me just lay freeze that, and then Control P this. Oops. DWG PDF again. Let me just fix that next time, so I won't do that. And this is going to be plants. Okay. Make sure that it actually prints something. Check that layer. It didn't look like it printed to me, so let me just go back and check that real quick. Desktop, SSF folder. No. Okay. So if that happens, it's probably because something's on no print layer. So I'm going to double click in it and click on that. It's on 0. And let me just drag this out. And 0's on no print layer. Okay, so turn that off. So we'll just try that again, Control P. And let me modify this so that it happens no more. So let me page setup manager, modify, and DWG to PDF. So I'll stop doing that and bothering me. Okay. Alright, now Control P. And save over that plants. Yes, I do. There we go. Okay. And let me let me do a lay on. Turn everything else on in this on my I just wanted to do that. Okay, there we go. And what I want to do now is just kind of isolate the line work and the hatches. So there you go. Okay. This is really just kind of overkill, but just to show you how you can do it. And this is just the actual section line. Okay. Great. All right. So now that I have those pieces kind of separated, what I want to do, I'll just minimize that. I'm going to jump into Photoshop. There we are. All right, so I'm going to open, and I'm going to go to my Photoshop. Oh, or hell am I? I'm going, this is the SSA, new folder, okay. I want to get my sections, plants, and dimensions, open, okay. So what I want to do is make sure that they're all media box, so it'll open up to the 24 by 36 inch. 300 is fine for the resolution, it's a little big, but that's cool. And they'll open up to the previous default, great. So now what I want to do is combine these to one file. So this is the last one that's here, so I'm just going to click on that, and I'm going to say section lines. And I'm going to come over here, I'm going to Control A, Control C, that's select everything and then copy. Then I'm going to Control Shift V to paste in place, and that's going to be my plants. And then the last thing is going to be Control A, Control C, and then Control Shift V, and that should be the dimensions or labels. Let me spell that right. Dimensions. Okay. And then section lines. All right, bam. And now let me put a white background just so we can actually see what we're working with. Boom, boom. Cool. So now we actually can see what we have and what we kicked out of AutoCAD. And what I want to do now is put this thing in a group. Oh, the group shortcut's not working. Put it in a group, and I'll call this line work. Okay. And now I want to save that since I did all that. So I'm going to save as, and I'm going to put that in the Photoshop skill assessment folder. what's going on with that? Okay. And I'm just going to call this not section lines, but how about just the section? Okay. Saving as a PSD in Photoshop's native format. Once I do that, I don't need these other lines. No, don't need to save that either. No, don't need you. All right. So now what I want to do is replace these plants, this black and white line work with photorealistic. So how do we do that? Let me close some of these guys out. Let me go to. A lot of this used to be hard to find, but it's becoming increasingly easier because things are moving to more complex 3D geometries. So the 2D stuff is kind of readily available. So I'm going to look for elevation tree. Okay. And then I'm just going to go into images. There we go. So let's kind of pick what we want. That's a nice looking tree. So I'm going to copy image, and I'm going to come back to Photoshop. Then I'm going to Control V. All right. And you want to make sure that these things aren't pixelated. So find trees that are big enough so that when you stretch them out, they don't pixelate. So that's pretty good. Now what I want to do is get rid of the white. So I'm going to hit W for my wand and deselect contiguous and just select that and just blam. So there you go. So now I have a nice tree. So I'm going to kind of put that there, like that. And I'm going to just, oops, over here, back on the tree. And there's, hold on, I'm just going to copy another one over. And I'm going to Control T and just make it a little bit smaller, just to kind of make it look more realistic so it's not exactly the same. And then maybe one more time over here, and below that cut line, and Control T. Maybe this one's kind of the bigger one. All right, boom. So now we have some trees there. And I'll put those and I'll put those in a group too. Say front trees. All right. Now I need to find some of these pines. So. Pine or evergreen. Beautiful. Copy image, come back here. So I'm trying to do this really quickly. And the name of the game about this is speed. Once you've done this a few times and the wow factor of rendering kind of fades a little bit, and it will, not all the way, but it'll fade a little bit. You really realize that the name of the game of this is trying to get something built, and that you want to be fast with these things because you want to get the idea out and not spend a ton of your life getting it out, or the client's money just creating a beautiful rendering. So I'm just shrinking this down a little bit and just kind of putting it there. And I'm going to copy again. I'm going to keep these all in the same layer this time. Okay. Kind of let that go. Because they're all on one layer, I'm just going to put it back there. And I'm actually going to bring that behind the front trees. Okay. Let me just turn those off for a second too so I can see. All right. So now let me worry about this kind of smaller tree here. And let me just go back and try to find another deciduous tree. Maybe we try to find something that's ornamental, maybe a dogwood. Maybe PNG. A white background. maybe just ornamental. That doesn't work, maybe just tree. And once you've done this a few times, you begin to establish a library, and this will go a lot faster. So let me just do tree, and we'll just do some Photoshop magic on it. So what looks kind of ornamental? I would select something like this, but you know, you're tempted to get to grab that, and you could, but there's watermarks on it, and you really want to avoid that. Sometimes if they're small, it won't matter. But if at all possible, you want to find a tree that doesn't have that on it. Yeah, it's kind of looking. We'll find something eventually. Another thing you can do for searches, let me do this too. Let's go to tools and size, and let's just go medium and see if that helps out some. And it's bright, I like that. So I'm gonna copy image. Back to Photoshop. I'm gonna drop this tree in Control V and get rid of that white. Control D to let go. Control T, see if it expands nicely. Okay. I'm gonna kind of zoom in, and what I'm gonna do is erase, E for eraser. Kind of come in and just trim around that real quick. Get rid of that shadow and kind of that white space. Alright, boom, get a tree. Ornamental, boom, right there. Alright, so that's cool. So I have what that, and that 2 plants to go. So let me try to find an ornamental. So back here, and 2D plant. Okay, man, it's all on my face. Well, how can I not grab that? So copy image. Come back here, Control V. Get rid of that white. So you can see I can really quickly begin to collage something together. This is just ornamental. Name your layers. Always be layer conscious. This is going to be shrub. Shrub 1. I'm being generic because I don't know what they are. I'm thinking about that right now. Boom, and that's that. And I need one more thing, so I'm going to go back here. And maybe it's like a hemocalyx or something. So we gotta click on those. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab all these, copy image, and I'm gonna come back to Photoshop, and then Control V, and get rid of that black. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna zoom in, and I'm gonna get rid of the ones that I don't want. I want that hemocalyx right there. There we go. Alright, just kind of delete the stuff you don't want. Zoom out now. And put those. Looks good to me. Like some more erase right there. Try to clean it up. Zoom in, and maybe I'll just deform this a little bit and stretch it out. Yeah. Make it like kind of short and chubby. Alright. And then I'm going to just pull that over again. I'm actually just going to highlight it to keep it on the same layer to make it simple. And there. And maybe it's still a little tinier. Okay, there you go. Alright, so we have that. So boom, we have some plants there. Alright, so now let me turn my line work off. Oh, not all the way off. Let me turn off the plants. background. So we kind of have this mask of trees and things going on right now. And what you can do too, just to kind of make this look more real, is to begin to play with the opacities of some of these things. And we'll put in some color and stuff here too, but one of the quick things you can begin to do. On my background trees, we can begin to reduce the opacity of them so they kind of fade. And as you fade things, it just gives it the illusion of distance, right? So we're kind of fading those out. Make them kind of really soft because they're in the background. Right? Play that fuzz distance yourself. And what I want to do too is I want to bring my line work in front of everything. Okay, so it's even better. And now that I can see that and kind of get this nice fade and stuff going on, what I'm going to do is go back in here to the line work, section lines, and this time I want it contiguous to be on. So I'm going to go inside that line. Oops. Okay. And I'm just going to create a layer and go below it and call this concrete color. And I'm just going to grab kind of a gray color, drop it in, just so we can kind of begin to see that. And well, that is concrete as well, isn't it? So let's go to that. So same thing, and just concrete color and drop kind of that in. Oh, well, it's because it's a color there. So on the actual I'll drop that in so it matches. There's actually a color there, so I just erased that so I can have that there and it be matched. I have this kind of area here. I'm just going to zoom in, and this is going to be the stone pavers are going to be. And this might be small, but you can blow this thing up, and I'm just going to show you how I drop that in. Just kind of using my marquee tool, I'm going to go and create another color and paver. Color. And I'm going to grab just a darker color so it pops out more. You could use maybe a stained color, but it's a dark gray, so I'm going to do it like that. Boom, boom, boom. Alright, so that's that. What else is... So homeboy is on plants, so we're going to use him as a reference. Let's pull a person in. And we can do silhouette people. It kind of depends on your preference. We'll just do in this style, we'll just do a silhouette. But I'm going to go back here and then find to the people. There's tons of stuff that you can get for this. So, you know, somebody walking, or, you know, two people walking, maybe, I don't know. People in action. Let's put this grab. Really doesn't matter. Make sure they're just a decent resolution. And really just for scale. So that's a whole bunch of people in that. I don't want all that. Alright, well, this is it. So I'm gonna copy image. I'm just copying. I can just drop this thing in, boom, and let me put that plants on. And Control T, and find what you want on this. Is, again, just make sure when you stretch it out that the resolution is going to be decent and it doesn't become pixelated. That's borderline, but it's okay. She is the chosen one. Alright. Really doesn't matter anyway. I'm going to make that a silhouette. Oops. And then just delete. Okay. That's about the right height. So you can put somebody that's photorealistic, and then this is just more person. I'll put them to the top too. And I'll turn those plant layers off. So now you begin to have a scene, and what I can do too is, oops, Control Z that back. Just gonna make a duplicate of it, okay, so I don't like I always make duplicates of things if I'm not sure. I'm gonna like something, just duplicate it, and don't worry about it. I'll do a color overlay. I really could have just done that in the first place, I guess. My color overlays are where? There. Tripping. Alright. Black. Okay. I don't worry about that. It's a color overlay, so that'll work out. Boom. Alright, so there goes a quick. Now we're almost done. Let's add some, just make it look better. So that's basic. If that was quick and dirty, you can run with that. Let's add the sky. Let's add some effects to it to make it a little bit nicer. What are you? You are shrub 2. So I'm going to call this plant material. Group it. And what I'm going to do is create a layer. And there's different things you can do for sky. I'm going to go over here and just look at trying to show you some different stuff. Sky, background. The style now is becoming kind of more soft and subtle. But if you wanted to do skies and stuff like that, you can find a sky background with some clouds and kind of just make it work. So let's maybe just grab that. So let me copy image back here. And oops, Control D. And then you would just kind of stretch this thing out. Maybe something like that. And then we would just like blur or dodge or whatever. Let's just actually erase that to blur. And make that a little bigger. And let's turn down the flow. Oops, wrong one. That one. Just want to get rid of that line. There you go, just that fast. Okay. Just kind of, went too far. Just kind of blurring those lines in together so I don't just lose that edge. There you go. And then what I can do is just kind of merge those, Control E. And I'm going to just try this one. This is working out. Grab that part of it and just Control T. Just kind of pull it down because I want that blue. Zoom out some. To kind of come down here like that. Looks decent to me. Then I'd come back out too and kind of grab my outline to where it's at, maybe right there. So you can zoom in. I'm just going to eyeball this. So maybe like right there like that. And Control Shift I to invert selection and delete that. I don't need the rest of that. And kind of have this sky that's beginning to emerge. And then what I can do is just fade that area out on top. I can do a blur style where let me just do a mask over this, and so I don't damage the image. I can just kind of do a mask and hit B for brush. Make it kind of a soft brush, and I'm painting with black, so it kind of begins to fade some of that out, and I can kind of just begin to soften that out like that. And just kind of, soften the edges into the white, so it just has a nicer effect. And kind of dip into some of that right there to that cloud. Just there you go. Gonna soften that. And then we can take it a step further and just kind of reduce the opacity a little bit so it's kind of faded in the background and just very subtle. But there. Okay, another thing that we can begin to do too is add the whole kind of birds effect. Again, a lot of these things they're just here. So to the birds flock. Something like that, where you have a bird scatter. So it seems like a lot to me. That looks good, so I'll just copy image. Is there a better one? Is there a better one? Even better. Nothing's cropped. So I'll come back here, then Control V. There goes those birds. Bring it up here. Get rid of that white. Control D. Turn the flow all the way back up. All the way up. Alright, back here. Alright, like that. So kind of have your birds kind of flying in the sky. Maybe a little bit bigger than that. Let's kind of give it some depth. Maybe the other ones can go away. I feel like it wants to fly the other way. Alright, so there you go. Kind of ambiance. There you go. Another thing you do, once you have these images set the way what I typically do, at least, work above. I'll grab everything and put it into a large group and make a copy of it. And just Control E and just merge everything, turn that off. So I have this kind of combined piece. And then once I have that, I can begin to mess with it. This is where you can play with your saturation. So I can go here and hue and saturation and, kind of really begin to desaturate things. And this is kind of that new aesthetic. You can colorize these things and kind of make them monochromatic, where this would pop out. So you can kind of get some, once you have this thing in Photoshop, you can do some really cool things to it to really kind of adjust it and achieve the aesthetic that you want for your overall board. So you can kind of play with these design motifs, and that looks decent to me right there. Boom. Maybe my board looks like that. It has kind of this burgundy hue to the whole thing. It has this kind of really cool aesthetic. Again, you're trying to storytell. Everything else is very, very clear. So anyway, once you find an aesthetic that you want, you kind of just make sure you're saving. So that kind of gets saved out. And then you can just file and save as. And this time just call it a JPEG. And I'm going to put it in my folder here. And I'm just going to call this section. And hit save. Why not? Let's make it large. You live one time. And say OK. You have it, and then we'll just check it out. And when we open it up, you should just see one blank image, and there we have it. So now we have a very pretty quick elevation. This is a monochromatic style, but we could have made it really anything that we wanted. That took a much more simplified AutoCAD section and made it more photorealistic. If any questions, send me an email or just find me in class.